Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. It's Mike that's going to be running through today's session. I'm going to be covering dispatch notes and managing your dispatch area. We do have volume live chat, so if you've got any questions throughout today's session, just ask away, and we'll be hanging around for a little bit at the end as well. So if you've got any questions after the session or anything that you want to recap, just let us know, and we'll stick around for a little bit and answer sort of any questions you've got. So. Just give you a bit of an idea of what we're going to be running through. We're going to be running through sort of the different dispatch options that you've got within Prima, how you can create a dispatch note and the different options within there, and how you can potentially sort of change the way that Prima works for you. How you can amend and add to existing dispatch notes, completing your dispatch notes, the difference between sort of your direct delivery dispatch notes and sort of pick wrap label or standard dispatch notes. How you can use the search how you can basically make the search a little bit quicker for you guys and so you know how to use it properly within the actual dispatch area, and then finally covering a little bit of the manifests as there's sort of a couple of different things that you can do within the dispatch area. So starting off, the first thing we're going to be going through is different dispatch options. So what we mean by this is against a company and against a location, you actually have a number of different dispatch options. So if I go into the company and into a specific company and into a specific location, we have on the bottom right hand corner some different delivery options. So in here we've got 3 options, and you can set this against sort of each location. So what may work for one location and one company, you can change for a different company and a different location. And these options are allow consolidated, so that will basically for however many orders you put on in a period, when you go to create notes, if you've got more than one order, it will bundle it all together and put it onto one dispatch note. So if you've got a company that's sending multiple orders, then it may be worthwhile sort of allowing them to consolidate, and you're sending sort of one big order rather than sort of 5 dispatch notes with sort of small orders on. Next that we've got option of single dispatch require back orders. That will it'll basically split down each dispatch note per order, and it will only allow you to create the dispatch note once all items are available to be dispatched. So if you've got any back orders, it won't allow you to create the note until it's all been booked in and it's all available to dispatch. And then the final option, which is the most common, is single dispatch ignore back orders. That will create a single dispatch note for the order, and basically it will just allow you to dispatch whatever is available at the point that you go to create. So that's the most common. So it will ignore any back orders that you've got and allow you to create and dispatch the goods that you do. So they're the 3 different options. Depending on your customer setup, your customer requirements, they may differ on each account, and it's useful to sort of see if that will work. If you've got sort of larger accounts that you send multiple orders to, it may be worthwhile sort of consolidating them, and it means that you've sort of got less paperwork for you or your drivers to deal with. So that's something to think about. All different options, they can be changed on location level, so depending on what location, you can go into and just change that option within there, and it'll do sort of what you want. So once you've actually got that sort of settled, and once you're happy with sort of how things are set up, once you put your order on, it's been purchased, it's come from stock, everything's been booked in, it's time to create your sort of dispatch notes. So depending on the what your process is, sort of how you work, you may create your dispatch notes in the evening before, or sort of in the morning. So if it's in the evening before, you'll be creating them sort of stocked on pre-book. So it still works the same way, it just depends at the time that you create, but you'll be following the same process for either. You'll be going into your movements, you'll be going into your dispatch, and once you're in your dispatch, you'll be going into your available lines. So depending whenever, it's just you might have booked your goods in before, you may not have booked them in yet. It still works the same way when it comes to dispatch, because the items that that are on pre-book, they'll be within here. So it both works the same way. It's just what you do beforehand that may differ. So when you're in here, to create any dispatch notes, you will hit this search button, and that'll basically list sort of any items that you've got sort of available to be dispatched. Now, just before we actually do go into the dispatch, depending on how you work, if you're a company that prefers to pick throughout the day, it may be worthwhile looking at sort of the pre-picking list on the left hand side here. Now, I'm not going to cover this too in depth, but basically this allows you to create a picking list for your warehouse staff, and they'll be able to go and sort of pick from this. Whereas, some customers, you may well just pick from the dispatch note. So depending how you work at this point, once you've returned the goods that need to be dispatched, you can basically print or create a pre-picking list from the lines in here. So at this point, before you create your notes, if you are using a pre-picking list, you can basically just create a copy of the report by using these options here, and that allows you to create a picking list. Now, if you're a company that picks from your dispatch note, then you would just proceed, you'd highlight all of these lines in here because all these need to be dispatched, and then you would hit this button here to create and add to dispatch notes. Now, the reason it says create/add is down to a system key. So at this point, it says create an app because it'll do one or two things depending on your setup. It'll either, depending one, if you've got an option, if you've got this system key ticked, it will create sort of a brand new dispatch note. If you've got the system key set to add to existing, it will basically add to any in transit sort of notes that you've got. Now, one thing to bear in mind with this is depending on how you work, you may want it to sort of add, if you're creating sort of notes throughout the day, you may want it to add to sort of existing notes on the system, but it will only work if you're keeping on top of things. So if you're using the pod, it may be worthwhile doing this. So as you're adding things in the morning, you're booking in any back orders before you send your drivers out, you can sort of automatically add items to it, and that option is within the admin. So if I just go into the administration, on the system keys, movements, and then we've got the option here which is allow available lines to be added to in-transit dispatch notes, and that will basically do as it says. If you've got any items that you create from the available lines, rather than creating them as a new sort of note, it will add them to any existing notes that you've got. So if there's any items that you're booking in the back order, for example, rather than creating a new note, it'll just add them automatically to the in-transit dispatch notes. So it will work well if you're keeping on top of your system, but if you're not dispatching notes sort of straight away, then you can end up adding sort of lines to notes that are sort of in transit and have already been sent out. They've all been delivered from the day before, which won't work too well. So if you're using the pod, it may be something that's worthwhile looking at if you want to make your operation a little bit more streamlined. If you're picking sort of consistently, you're having to go in and make amendments, whatever it might be, that may well work for you. Now, just going back, once you're happy with your sort of dispatch notes and everything in here, you would highlight all of these lines. I'm sure I'm going to highlight a few, and you would hit create or add, and basically it'll do exactly that. Depending on the option you've got selected, it'll either create a new one or it will sort of add to an existing line, a little bit like this. Okay. Now, again, another setting depending on how you have this set up. Your notes may go to sort of outstanding, or they may go to in transit. And again, if I just go back to our admin, there's another system key here which will sort of dictate the default status for dispatch notes when they're created. So some dealers, you may prefer it if it goes to outstanding, because then once you've picked and once you know it's on its way, you can highlight and you can use the sort of the buttons within complete to set it to be in transit, so you know that that's been picked and it's on its way. Now some customers, you may think that's a bit of a wasted step. It's another step in the process when there doesn't need to be, so you may want to change that system key so it defaults to in transit. But I say it's all personal preference and how you want to work. If you want to follow the steps and know sort of each dispatch note's been picked, it's been sent out, or you just want it to just know that, well, any dispatch notes we're going to pick we're going to send it out, you can mark it as in transit straight away. So if you're doing that process and you don't think you need to be of changing from outstanding to in transit, you can change the default setting within the sort of the system keys. So that's something that you may want to think about. Now, we've gone through, these goods have been picked. If you want to mark it as in transit, you can just hit complete, and you've got this option here to progress the selected notes to in transit. So that's you telling the system that you know those notes are on the way. Okay, so we'll just mark that, and what we'll notice is that is now in transit. So that's been picked, it's on the van, it's on its way. Okay, so that's creating a dispatch note. So you've got your picking list in there, you've got your different bits, and after you've marked as it, before you've marked it in transit, or if it automatically goes to in transit, don't forget once you've created to highlight all the relevant notes in here and print an email so you get your copies out, and then that's how you get your dispatch notes off, and that's how you'd either pick from them, or if you've already picked from the pre-picking list, then you can just attach these to the boxes and give them to your driver, and it's off to be delivered to your customer. Now, moving on from sort of creating, if you do need to make any additions, any amendments to any dispatch notes, it can be done at the in-transit stage. So sort of once you complete a dispatch note, it's at that point that you've hit your limit. That's sort of the end of the line for any sort of amendments for an order. So if we want to make a change, for example, if you notice it's the wrong location, or you want to add a new item to it, if we click into a note, we are able to, first of all, click this deliver to button, and then from the drop down amend the location it's going. So if you do realise at the point that you put the order on for any sort of standard orders, it needs to be delivered somewhere else, or your customer calls and says, in fact, can we have that order delivered elsewhere, you can do so within Dispatch. You don't have to delete the order and go through the entire process again. You can change it to the dispatch note stage, which will work out sort of better for you if that does happen, rather than you spending ages changing sort of an order, putting it on again. You can just change it on the note. If you need to add any additional items, if I just close out of this, you've got this available items button at the top, and that will basically just look at your dispatch available lines. Say if there's a back order that's been booked in you want to add, you can use that available items, find your item in here, highlight it, and add that item to the dispatch note, and it will literally just do what it says. It'll put it on there for you. So if there's anything that you need to sort, you can easily sort of do that from here. Again, deletions, anything like that, it can be done sort of in transit, but the amendments, they're the main amendments you're going to be making, sort of the address and then adding any lines to it. And once you're happy with it, you can just hit, once it's been sent, you can reprint it, and you can go through sort of whatever process you need to do to process that order. So once you've sent the goods out, your driver's come back, you've got your signed delivery note, or the pods, with the pod, which we'll move on to in a little bit with the manifests. But for this process, your driver's gone out, you've got a manually signed sheet, you'll come through, and it'll be a case that you want to complete sort of these lines. So you'll have a list in here. Again, you'll highlight the list that you've got. So in our case, we'll just select the one. You go to the complete button, and then you just select the confirm selected notes option, and that'll complete that delivery note for you. And then that's basically the start to finish of the dispatch notes done, basically the process of creating it, amending, and doing whatever you need to with that. But there are some differences with how you handle certain dispatch notes. So that was the main process for your standard delivery, your pit wrap label, sort of goods that are coming into yourself. Now for any direct deliveries, so you may see in this big list here, we've got, if I just sort on the info, we've got a couple of direct deliveries within here. Now, your direct deliveries aren't managed in the same way as your standard and sort of pit wrap delivery notes. It's all sort of managed and dealt with within the receipts. So if you want a little bit more information on how to manage the direct deliveries with the receipts, last week's webinar we covered sort of the receipts section, so there's a little bit more information there if you want to catch up on that. Basically you won't be creating any sort of direct delivery notes, you won't be completing any direct delivery notes from the dispatch stage. It's all done sort of automatically with the creation as soon as the sort of purchase order gets acknowledged or purchased. But then the receipts, it's in there that you would actually manage the sort of dispatching of your receipt of your dispatch notes for direct delivery orders. So as soon as you complete a receipt for a direct delivery, it will complete the dispatch note automatically. So you don't really have to worry about them in here. You only really want to be completing your sort of standard and pit wrap orders within your dispatch. So it may be that you need to find a specific dispatch note number. You may be looking for a specific status or a specific customer that may want a proof of delivery. So the searching within the dispatch, it's important to know sort of what you're doing and where you're looking in order to get that information. So if I just click the yellow bar at the very top, it will expand the search. And at the minute we're looking at all current dispatch notes. That'll be sort of outstanding or in transit. Now, If you're looking for a previous dispatch note for a specific customer, you may want to, you don't know the specific note number, but you know the date it was delivered on. You can easily look at the status of dispatched, and then basically that will look at any dispatch notes that have been sort of completed. Now, if we just type in a specific customer and we hit search, basically return sort of all dispatch notes that fit that bill, and you can easily come and find sort of any dispatch notes associated to that company. So clicking the yellow bar again, you've got all your different searches in here. You can look at sort of van routes, you can look at specific depots, statuses, whether it's been printed or not, specific orders with a specific product code on, but the main thing that sort of you don't want to get caught up on is the status. So if you can't find sort of a specific note, try changing the status and seeing sort of what else you can find on it, because it may be that dispatch note's been completed, or it may still be outstanding depending on what you're looking at. So it's just a bit of information that the status can be changed, whereas in some other areas, to drop down at the top, it's the four sort of tick boxes here that you can select one of, as well as other bits like the manifest and the van routes, etc. So that's the searching. It's relatively straightforward. If you're having any issues searching for an item or looking for it, just let the customer service team know, and they'll be more than happy to help out. But the main reasons are the statuses if you can't find something. So the final option within sort of the dispatch is the manifests. So the whole sort of what we've been through so far is managing your dispatch notes sort of away from the likes of the pod app or the manifests. So you are able to, once you've created your sort of in-transit dispatch notes, go into movements and manifests, and basically create a manifest from here and manage it from within this area. So we won't spend too much time on here because we do have a dedicated sort of webinar for the manifest and the pod. But just know it's once you've created your dispatch notes within the in-transit, you can go into this available lines, and it'll show you sort of any in-transit dispatch notes in here. If you just click search, and you will be able to create your manifests to sort of use to put your dispatch notes on for the pod app, or if you're going to use it sort of manually, then you can. It's all managed from within here. But as I say, we've got a specific webinar that covers that more in depth. But all you need to do to know is, from a dispatch point of view for the pod and for the manifest, is as long as you've created them, they're in transit, it'll be within here and allow you to sort of put it on and process through the pod app. And with the pod app, you won't be having to sort of go into the dispatch stage and manually sort of completing notes by highlighting and going through, because that's what the pod app will do. The pod app will do that for you. As soon as you get a signature on the app, it'll automatically complete the dispatch note within Prima, and it'll do sort of the process for you. So just have a little bit of a recap. We've got the different dispatch options within the sort of location. So depending on how you want your company to work or what may work better for them, having different dispatch options may be something you need to look at. So whether you want them to consolidate or only create when you've got full orders, or sort of you're not too bothered, you want to just dispatch what you can at the point you go to create. Create your dispatch notes. You've got your pre-pick and listing there. You've got your different system keys on what will happen at the point of creation, whether it will add to existing or whether it will sort of create them any new notes as in transit or outstanding, depending on sort of what process you want to follow. Whether you want to follow exactly the steps that you're going through of picking and put onto your van, then you can do sort of with the different statuses. Going through amending dispatch notes, the two main bits you'll be amending is adding any existing items on, or sort of changing locations, and it's nice and easy to do within there. Your direct delivery notes, they're all managed from the receipts, but as I sort of mentioned, if you want to cover sort of your direct delivery notes, it is mainly managing the receipts, so we do have the webinar covering that in a little bit sort of more detail. And the searching is sort of straightforward, similar to sort of other bits, but you can expand it and search on sort of more criteria in there, and then find the manifest. But we do have a separate webinar that covers this in detail and go through sort of how you can create it via van routing and other bits. But apart from that, that's all that we've got sort of for today, and that is the dispatch notes in a nutshell. If you have any questions, both myself and Ollie will be hanging around for a little while now. But apart from that, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.